Welcome everybody. This is the Dementia Life Changing Not Ending session at the Social Care Futures Festival. I'm Ian McCreath. I work for Alzheimer's Society as their personalisation policy lead. Before I hand over to Philly and Wendy, Keith and Chris, I'm just going to take you through a few slides showing how today's going to work. I realise this is day 3, so many of you may have seen these slides before, but just in case some of you haven't, we will just run through them quickly. Okay, so as I say, this session is the one on dementia, about life-changing, not life-ending. If anyone is still trying to get into the session or having difficulties, then there is a telephone number you could ring to get you through to Wendy. It's 121 474 5900. So if you see anybody messaging, or if you're unable to see or access the session, then if you call that number, Wendy will try and help you out. And just a reminder, as with all Social Care Future events these last 3 days, we are recording the session. So apart from any breaks or lunchtime breakout rooms, which we won't have in this session, so actually everything that is said and shared will be recorded, so you can play it back or share it. We will be having a Q&A session today, as well as an open discussion at the end, once we've heard the personal views from the speakers. We're going to keep that as an open session, an open group, so please indicate if you wish to contribute, if you want to say something. Throughout the 3 days has been sort of wave something yellow, so if you've got a yellow card, a banana or a rubber duck, if you don't have any of those things, don't worry, a wave or in some way just let us know that we would like to contribute, and we'll keep an eye out and bring you in. I'll call you by name, and then we'll make sure if you're unmuted then you can contribute. Also, please use the chat facility as well in Zoom. We encourage people to pose questions or views throughout the session, so that when we get to the Q&A, we can read those out, and then we can put those to the panel and make sure that your views or your questions are part of the session. And just a final note here that we will be keeping to time, because we do need to make sure that we finish promptly at 1, so that the sessions that follow us won't be delayed or affected. Okay, so I shall, oh, sorry, last couple of slides. If you're not speaking at that moment or that time, please stay on mute, because there are lots of people in the same room together. If it's not on mute, it can create some distracting background noise, so please use the mute. But equally, if you do want to contribute, then remember to switch the mute off so we can hear you. And please leave the videos on, because it's always good to do, but if you do want to have a snack or have a video on, then please do switch it off as well. Using the gallery view in the top corner, you can either look at the whole group. The chat along the bar at the top. Do post any questions or comments or view session in and raise those at the right time. And if you're using headphones, this could be a problem, because it's normally on default for computer speak. So do use the Zoom Us button at the top and click on Preferences, and then you can choose which one is best for you. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and hand you over to Philly, who's going to introduce the next part of the session.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Philly Hare, one of the co-directors of Innovations in Dementia, and I'm really pleased to be with you all here this morning, and with Chris, Wendy and Keith. And we're going to be thinking about the social care future vision with particular relevance to people with dementia, a group who traditionally, but thank goodness not at this festival, have been left out of such discussions. So let's go straight into introductions, and I'd like to start with you first, please, Chris.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I am living with early onset vascular dementia and Lewy body dementia, and I also have Parkinson's disease. I try to give lots of talks and to raise awareness about dementia and to show that there are different stages of dementia and that we can still live well and we can still participate in events such as this. Thank you.
12:30.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Sorry, but I worry.
Sorry, we've got some, they've been muted. That's great. Thank you, Chris. Sorry about that. Wendy, can I invite you to introduce yourself as well?
My name's Wendy Mitchell, and I was diagnosed with mixed dementia 6 years ago, vascular and Alzheimer's. I obviously have a vested interest in what the future looks like for social care, as currently it wouldn't suit me as an individual with dementia, and so I hope we can come up with solutions to make this vision happen.
Thank you, Wendy. And I gather, so you don't actually use any social care services at the moment, but you're thinking about the future.
Yes, because in this area, there are no services for people under 65.
Well, that's the first point we probably need to make, isn't it? Let's reflect on that. Thank you very much. And last but not least, Keith, could I invite you to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you, Philly. Hello, everyone. Until December 2010, I was a head teacher of a very large primary school and a local authority advisor to 23 schools, alongside which I was studying for a master's degree in education leadership in Canterbury, where I live. Then on New Year's Eve, whilst the nation was out celebrating, my wife and I were reflecting and coming to terms with the news received that day after a 7-month investigation into my health that resulted in a confirmed diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. I just celebrated my 55th birthday 1 week before. Since then, after a period of 4 months in the wilderness with no social care at all, and thinking that my useful life was over, I met an inspiring clinical psychologist, and the journey into the world of health and social care began for me as an activist, advocate, and then more officially as an envoy for the NHS in Kent and an Alzheimer's Society ambassador. I've written 2 books and contributed to many more, and in 2017 was fortunate to be supported by Philly and my wife in going to speak to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. This contributed to pressure being put upon the UK government to better recognise the rights of those affected by dementia, which I took alongside the re-energised dementia statements to the World Conference in Chicago in 2018. So, from being thrown on the scrap heap in 2010, which is where I was, and seeing my 33-year-old career come to an end, and being told I had to call it a day for my masters, and seeing friends desert me in front of my eyes, and feeling I had no sense of direction or purpose. The last 10 years have opened my eyes and many doors to enable me to meet some fabulous people, many of whom work tirelessly in health and social care. And I'm honoured today to share some of my thoughts alongside my dear friends, Wendy and Chris and Philly.
Thank you, Keith, and thank you to all of us. So we're going to, of course, be talking about the social care future vision. And if you've been taking part in the festival over the last few days, you should know that off by heart. But I'm just going to read it again just to set the tone. So the vision is expressed as a question, and it asks, don't we all want to live in the place that we call home, with the people and things that we love, in communities where we look out for one another, doing the things that matter to us? And what we want to ask is, how does that vision, or can that vision, really apply to people who are living with dementia? So let's start off with just a general opening question. And I'm going to come to you first, Wendy, and then Chris, and then Keith. So my question is, how does the social care future vision work for those of us, that's 850,000, who are living with dementia? How does that vision work, Wendy?
Well, the vision works by acknowledging that we're individuals with individual needs, which often the current social care system doesn't recognise. We often have to slot into services rather than asked, what do we need? So obviously something has to change, and surely we have a right, just like anyone else, to be asked what's important to us. People always see social care as someone else's business. It happens to someone else, not to them. But we don't think like that about healthcare. Healthcare is everybody's business. And so we have the National Health Service. So why not a National Care Service? Because both can work in partnership with one another. And the money saved on one side can be used to enable the other side to work more efficiently and on a more individual basis.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Chris, do you think this vision can work for people who are living with dementia?
I don't think it's a vision, can it work? I think we need to say it must work for people living with dementia, because too often, not just in social care, but in every other scenario, we're the people that are left out because we're living with dementia. We're the people that have lost our jobs because we have dementia. And we do have a voice, and we need our voices to be heard. And when I've asked locally, I live in East Sussex, about social care and social prescribing, I've just been met, well, we haven't got anything like that here. So where do we find out about these things? How can we take part? We've got lots to give. We just need to be, have the doors open to let us in.
So is it fair to say, Chris, that you approve of the vision, you feel it's a great vision, but you feel it's a long way from what is actually happening on the ground now for people like you?
Yes, absolutely. The vision is a must, because at the end of the day, we all need to decide where we want to live, how we want to live, and the things that we want to do. But so often people haven't listened to us in the past. So we just want to be listened to now and to contribute, because there have been so many things that talks that I've listened to, but the person living with dementia has never been a part of that talk. They've never been invited along. And we need to be included, we need to be involved, and we need to be asked, what is it that we want and what is it that we need?
Thanks very much, Chris. So I'll come to you now, please, Keith, to ask you whether you feel that vision as a whole can work for people who are living with dementia.
Absolutely, it can do. It isn't doing at the moment, but it certainly can do. And I think we've got to look beyond now. We've got to look beyond tomorrow, really, to the day after, because I think there's some really fabulous people working in social care, and they deserve as good as we do who are receiving this social care. And I think to do that, it needs really good leadership. And that's been something that's been very much part of my career in training leaders, because without leaders who have a clear vision, you don't get any kind of steps forward. People get frustrated, both who are receiving social care and are trying to deliver it. So I think that's a key thing. There needs to be clear vision from from everybody. We need to know what we need, what we require. Those people delivering it need to know what they can require, and the people leading it need to really do exactly that, to lead it forward. We had a sense of this, I think, with David Cameron and the Prime Minister's challenge and the dementia strategy, and that was a great promise, some of which was delivered, but a lot of it, I'm afraid, has sort of fallen by the wayside slightly. So we need to re-energise that, really.
Okay, thanks very much, Keith. That's great. So that's kind of kicked us off. But what I'd like to do now is really kind of drill down into the different elements of the vision, because I guess that a lot of people who are maybe less educated about dementia or haven't come across it in their daily lives would assume that actually it's pretty unrealistic to expect that people with dementia can live in the place that they call home. So I'm going to turn to you, Chris, first, if that's all right, and ask you, can we really expect to stay living in the place that we call home? And what would it take to make that possible?
I think everybody wants to live in a place that they call home, whether that's their own home, it might be with family members, or even a care home. It needs to be our home.
Right.
And I think that if you live on your own, then it's a very different situation that you're looking at. And we all want to keep our independence for as long as we possibly can. And I think it's important for people living with dementia to have dot the I's and cross the T's and make sure that they've got a will and got lasting powers of attorney, because we need to say now, whilst we're able to, what we would like. And yes, I would like to stay in my own home. And I think that if we have the correct social care and social prescribing, then that will enable us to live longer and live better. And we'd be less of a drain on the NHS. And we would just get enjoyment out of life. And that's another thing that we want. We want to enjoy the lives that we have. And I think that often there's a big gap for younger people living with dementia. We know that there's sort of cafes and little clubs that older people can go to, but we're not at that stage yet. We can still communicate. We do still enjoy the things that we do in life, and we want to carry on doing that.
Thanks, Chris. Can I just ask you a follow-up question, if that's all right? So you started by making the point that home doesn't have to mean your own house. It can mean other places. It could even mean a residential setting. So what would actually make somewhere like that your home? What are the key things?
I think you need familiar things around you, things that mean something to you. And I think that you need to be able to do things that keep you busy and that you're interested in. And, you know, not all of us want to sit and just listen to Vera Lynn songs. Sorry, Vera, I know you're no longer with us, but, you know, we want things that are age appropriate, and we want things that we enjoy doing, not things that people might think we enjoy doing. And that's very often the case with dementia. I think that people like to think for you, and we need to think for ourselves.
That's great. Thank you very much, Chris. So I'll come to you next, Keith, please. Can we really expect to stay living in the place that we call home?
Yes, is a straight answer to that. And I think, would we ask the same question to people who don't live with dementia? And I would suggest maybe we wouldn't ask that question. Everyone needs to feel safe at all times, especially in their own homes, but also in any kind of residential setting. And this is far more than just physically safe for me. It also means psychologically and emotionally safe. Having someone or a few people who care for us and about us helps enormously. And Chris is right, objects are important as well, but so are the people. And user-friendly, person-centered care technology with support for us to use alongside aids and adaptations to our own home is also useful. And I know from my own experience with my mother, that helped keep her independent in her own home for longer as well. And it's the support that comes with the technology and the bits of kit that's just as important as simply the kit itself. It's far better for the individual and our family and friends that this place is also far cheaper to society than placing us in homes. And having said that about the importance of a safe and secure physical and emotional environment, I'd like to add that whilst I'm not a particular risk taker, I do react very badly to being wrapped in cotton wool. Always have, always will. And I guess that's a case of knowing the people as well, knowing the people that you're caring for, knowing the people that you're sharing a lived space with. And everyone needs a small element of risk in their lives in order to thrive and take on new challenges and maintain self-confidence and self-esteem, something which is often robbed of us with dementia. And without this, we just conform to a submissive and passive state. And I know from many hours spent in care homes with my mother that that is often the case. Whereas when they're stimulated, when there's a bit of banter, then that home is home to them.
Lovely, thanks, Keith. A really important point there about positive risk taking and feeling in control of the amount of risk that you want in your life, as we all are. Okay, Wendy, last but not least, so the question that we're asking is, can we really expect to stay living in the place that we call home?
As with everybody else, yes. What would it take to make this possible? I really think that we need to normalise talking about dementia in the beginning stages. And that's with professionals as well, to remember there's a beginning to this condition. Dementia has a beginning, and that enables us to talk about what we want in the future, about, you know, while we're still able, as someone said. It's so important. The biggest lesson it's taught me and my daughters since being diagnosed is the power of talking. And talking enables actions. We don't just talk and then forget about what we've said. We action what we've said, and that's what's missing at the moment. There's an awful lot of talking about changing this, that, and everything, but we have to have the doing, the actions that go with the talking. Again, at the moment, I just feel like a square peg in a round hole, and I don't fit. Whereas if it was normal to have these discussions at the beginning of this dementia diagnosis, then it would become clear what everyone needed and wanted, and would, oh, I've lost my theme, would become needed.
So you were saying if you had the discussions at the start about what you want.
Yeah, it would become obvious the needs of individuals rather than a group of people. We're not a group of people, we're individuals. We're human beings just like everyone else. And we can change our minds along the way, but if we've started talking at the beginning, it makes it easier to talk about what our needs are throughout our progression.
Thanks very much, Wendy. Really important point. And I know that you've often said that, you know, you live alone, and that's your choice, and you want to remain living alone if possible in your home.
And my daughters know that, and my daughters, you know, we've talked about what if, and what if I can't, what if I change my mind. But it's normal for us to talk. It's not, they're not difficult conversations or embarrassing conversations as many people find them. They're just normal.
Thanks. Thank you, Wendy. So we've looked a little bit at whether we can expect to stay living in the place we call home. Let's move on and think about the next element of the vision. What will our communities actually need to be able to look out for us? And can we still be part of looking out for others? That's the flip side of it, isn't it? Would you like to start with that, Keith?
Yeah, thanks, Philly. I would start by building upon the useful Dementia Friends and Dementia Friendly Communities initiatives, which did certainly help. And they helped with raising awareness and reducing stigma. And I noticed in the chat, someone mentioned about fear, and there is definite fear in the community towards dementia. And if we're not careful, we're almost ostracized and removed from the community because of fear. There are actually people out there believe you can catch dementia, believe it or not. So there's this sense of isolation that's compounded by that. I would teach as a teacher myself about dementia in schools, colleges and universities. And as a teacher, I remember in the 1980s teaching about AIDS across all ages, from reception right through to secondary school. And without lessening that terrible disease's impact upon those affected by it, as far as I know, none of the children caught AIDS or indeed knew anyone who had AIDS. But if you ask any class of kids who knows someone who's got dementia, there'll be a lot of hands go up. This can then be taken further with more in-depth intergenerational work. And I've been privileged to do a lot of this since being diagnosed. In fact, one student said of me, once a teacher, always a teacher. I've been called some things in my life, and that's not a bad label to have. Some of these youngsters can then be inspired to seek a career in social care, and if not, to contribute to a much more tolerant community, which shows greater respect, and that's a key word, respect, for those of us who have dementia. And what's good for people with dementia is certainly good for everybody.
Thanks, Keith. And in what you've just been saying, you've actually drawn out the fact that you are still actually continuing one of the roles that are so essential to your identity as a teacher. You're still contributing to your community by teaching, by educating, by sharing your experience. Does that feel important to you in this vision, that you are still giving as well as receiving?
No, it's not important to me at all, Philly. It's crucial to me. Because without that, I don't see how I could exist in the community anymore. Really, it's fundamental to me. And I think everybody has a fundamental right to feel a part of the community and to find their place in the community. And it comes two ways. The community has a duty to engage with people and to ensure they're part of that community, but also I think we have a responsibility of keeping ourselves within that community as well.
Thank you, Keith. So Wendy, I'll come to you now. We're talking about what our communities actually will need to be able to look out for us, and how you can still stay part of your community. I know you've discovered a lot about that in the last few months, haven't you?
I really have. During COVID, or since COVID and all this strange world started, we've seen this chinks of the vision as communities have started to come together and help one another. And I live in a village, and without even realizing it, my village has become totally dementia friendly. I'm known as the camera lady first. I'm not known as Wendy with dementia, because every morning I go out for a walk and I take photographs of the village and all the beautiful things we have around us that people miss in their daily lives. They're all so busy rushing around here, there and everywhere, whereas COVID has slowed everybody down and actually enabled them to see the village through my eyes. And I discovered the village Facebook page and started posting the photographs on the village Facebook page. And within days, I had so many people thanking me for showing them what they're missing outside, right on their doorstep. But without realizing that, they're enabling me to do that, to go out for a walk, because I feel safe in the knowledge that when I'm disorientated and I'm not sure where I am or where my house is, then I can just ask any villager and they'll point me in the right direction. They don't look at me all strange. It's not anything strange. They just tell me where to go to find my home again. And villagers have helped me on numerous occasions. So it works two ways. So existing has to work two ways for anybody. We all have to give and take. And I like to think that the villagers give me that safety I feel to be living here on my own. And I give them something to look forward to.
No, that's fine. I'm just going to go through to another room so that my son.
Keep going, Wendy. Keep going. Yeah. You were just saying that the community gives to you, and
yeah. So it's a two-way process. And for example, this morning I put on Facebook that I'd made these pebbles and painted poppies on them for Poppy Day for Remembrance Sunday as part of our dementia activist project, and said I would hide them around the village. And suddenly now it's got a bit out of hand, because I can see the whole village being out looking for them first thing in the morning when I've hidden them. But that's the two-way process that works best. That they give to me and I give to them.
That's really powerful examples, Wendy. Thank you. Chris, how about you and community? What can and should it mean to you, and how can you still be part of it?
I think far too often I've seen situations where people, once they're diagnosed with dementia, are put on the rubbish pile. And I can remember, as my dad also had dementia, and I found that people were talking to me or whoever was with him and not to him. And I used to say, ask my father that question. We still have a voice, and we all still need to have a purpose. And I too have been doing poppies on pebbles to put back on the beach and hide them. But now we're getting demands for them, and they're going up before we get a chance to put them back on the beach. But I need a purpose, and I need things to do, and so that helps me. I've also signed up to do voluntary work in my local hospice, and I thought, being a person living with dementia, nobody would want me. But if people get to know us and get to know who we are, how we work, what we have to give, we've all had careers. We've all had life experiences, and they don't just suddenly disappear. And I can remember reading recently in the World Alzheimer's report about dementia, and it's really frightening to think that, I'm not sure if it's 42% or 62% of healthcare professionals still think that dementia is a natural part of the aging process, and it's not an actual disease. And it's a life-limiting disease that we have with dementia. So why not try and enable us to have a good life as long as we can?
Thank you, Chris. Now, I'm aware of the time. It's going very quickly. We probably need to wind up before questions and answers, just in the next 2 or 3 minutes. But we've come to our last question, but we'll keep our answers fairly short. And I'll start with you, Wendy. Is it realistic to think that we can continue to do the things that matter to us?
Well, as Chris said, we all had talents before a diagnosis of dementia, and we don't suddenly lose all those talents overnight. But we just need the help and support of those around us to continue to do those things we love most, albeit differently or with support. But if we have that support, then we can try new things. We can, don't be so risk averse in allowing us to try new things, because you'll be amazed at what we can achieve. For example, I'd never used technology before dementia, and now I'm never off it. So it's, you know, we can learn. We just need that support of those around us.
Thank you, Wendy. That's great. And Keith, just a quick answer, please.
Yeah, support was the first word I put down as well, Wendy. You're absolutely right. Allied to encouragement, tolerance, and knowledge, and that's what the three of us try to do with people like yourself, Philly, in improving the knowledge of the public and also professionals. And alongside that, to make sure that social care becomes more proactive rather than reactive. That certainly helps me, because then I get the sense that caring people do really care as well.
Thank you, Keith. And Chris, is it realistic to think we can continue to do the things that matter to us?
Sorry. Yes, it is realistic, and I think that we can still do the things that matter to us. We just need that support, that encouragement, and people to realise how important it is. And I think sometimes we have to go and we have to look for anything we want to do or get involved with. But we need a one-stop shop and somebody to signpost us as to what's available and how we go about getting social care.
Thank you so much, and thank you to you all. So I'm going to quickly scroll through some of the many questions that you guys have been asking, and I can see that you've all been very engaged in the conversation, many comments that we'll look forward to reading afterwards. But in terms of the questions, I'm going to read out this one first. My husband described dementia as the last taboo. How do we re-energize the debate? Who'd like to answer this one? Maybe just one of you. Like to answer. Wendy.
By doing what the three of us do, by talking about it. I think I said before, to normalise talking about dementia, just like over the last 20 years, we've normalised talking about cancer. And so to make it not be a frightening condition that many people see.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go swiftly to another question. And maybe this is for either you, Chris, or Keith, whoever puts up their card first. Dementia is scary and unfashionable to the outside world. Battling cancer is much more attractive to society. How can we overturn this? Okay, Keith.
Scary to the inside world as well, to be honest with you. It scares me some days. But the way to overcome that fear is around these words: support, encouragement, doing the things that we're comfortable doing, having physical activity, mental activity, engagement, a sense of empowerment, you know, and yeah, that really for me overcomes the fear, because when that happens, I'm in a far better place to deal with the real fear that I confront each day. And many people with dementia confront that same fear.
Thank you. Chris, did you want to add something different, or would you like to take the next question?
I was just going to say that when you first get a dementia diagnosis, it's a really frightening and scary time. And I can remember crying for 3 months and not being able to leave the house because I felt like I'd been given a death sentence. When you get involved in things and you do things and you take part in things, and I know friends who are in total denial still that they have dementia, but I'm one of those people, I want to talk about it, I want to raise awareness, and I want people to know me and to know what matters to me and how best I can carry on living my life as well as I can.
Thank you. And actually the next one really follows on from that issue of what matters to people. And this might well be one that you want to pick up, Wendy, because you've been talking about this already. How do we make it easier for people to have conversations that matter?
Gosh, that's a difficult one insofar as many people don't find talking easy. Some families don't talk about the personal stuff. And so again, I think there's so many professionals that could help us to see the value of talking. Hospice services all have counselling nurses. And wouldn't it be lovely? They all talk to the families about what they need to know, what they need to do, what are the options. Whereas with dementia, we don't have anything like that. We don't have the equivalent of a cancer nurse coming to us unless we're lucky enough to have Admiral nurses. So, we need to have some consistency around the country in what's available for people with dementia, and for it not to be these pockets of excellence that exist.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is, do the experts, that's you guys, think that the way that dementia is talked about by some charities, politicians and the media is a help or a hindrance to ensuring that our vision becomes reality? I'll give you first choice of that, Chris.
I think it's a hindrance and they don't understand, basically. And I think that dementia needs to be seen as a life-limiting condition. And if we were diagnosed with something like cancer or diabetes, we'd get the support immediately of our healthcare service. You don't get that with a diagnosis of dementia. You have to go into the social care support realm. And half the time, we don't even know what that is. And I think that why do we have to be the poor people in society that have to fund everything for ourselves because we're not entitled to any sort of support from the healthcare, etc. So I think it's about time that people really realised and saw what dementia is and how it does affect people's lives.
Keith.
Yeah, it's quite a bunch of people there, politicians, media and charities.
Yeah.
That's quite an eclectic mix there, really. And in a sense, one would need to tease them out separately. I think sometimes it depends upon what that person's own experience of dementia is. I know of some politicians who have family members with dementia and they see it quite differently from other politicians because they really get it. So I think, it does depend to an extent upon the personal experience. And regards the media, I've worked with some fabulous people in the printed media and the television and radio, and they've been great. And they've been great because they've wanted to learn. It's the media who don't want to learn who I think are the problem. And then they base it all on supposition, as indeed so much of the media does anyway. But those media people, journalists who want to learn, I've found have been tremendous and have been a great asset. And charities, well, the best people I've met, Philly, since being diagnosed have been those working for charities.
Thanks very much. Okay, we're getting out of time extraordinarily, so I think that's going to be the end to our Q's and A's, but I don't want to hand over to Ian until I've given each of you the chance just to, if you want to give one key message that you want to leave with our audience today. Who'd like to go first? Wendy?
Simply to say, I think somebody already said it, but if you get it right for people with dementia, you get it right for so many other groups in society.
Thank you. Short and sweet, but very powerful. Thank you. Keith? Oh.
All of what we've said this morning are our rights, not our wishes.
Thank you. That was even shorter and sweeter. Human rights. Thank you very much, Keith. And finally, Chris.
I'd like to say that I'm still here and we're all still here. So please listen to us, acknowledge us, and give us what is rightfully ours.
Thank you so much. And thank you very much to all of you. I'm going to hand over now to Ian.
Thanks, Philly, and thanks everybody. It's been an amazing hour. It seems wrong to interrupt it, but we do want to open up the discussion for other people to contribute as well. Just what I would say is hopefully this last hour and things that we've heard has put to bed the idea that the social care vision isn't one that addresses or talks directly to people with dementia, because we have heard that, but I think from what we've heard today that that's clearly not the case. I think one of the other phrases that really stuck with me the last few days is what we're asking for, and it echoes what Keith said about it being a right and entitlement. What we're asking for is for ordinary things to be ordinary, and that because of dementia and because of other needs of social care, getting what matters to you and what is ordinary for other people becomes really difficult and really problematic. So what we really want to understand is, how do we change this? What do we need to do as a group of people, as individuals, as communities, as family members, as people living with dementia? What can we do to actually change the situation, how people feel? Very clearly it's come through is that we're talking about the importance of conversation. We're talking about the importance of contribution, having something to add and to contribute. And importantly, and there's very little discussion in this last hour that talks about services. It's much more about living life. It's about having relationships and the support to live the life that you want, not the services that are available to you in that area. So what we want to look at and open up the conversation, so please wave or indicate in any other way that you want to contribute and add something. Remember to turn your mute button off. Is what practically does that mean? What can we do next? What actions can be taken through commissioning or co-production? We talked about charities, media, politicians, communities, all are in this mix. What are people's reflections? What are people's views about practical things, steps that can be taken to make a difference? I'll start with you, Joseph.
Thanks very much. That was brilliant presentations, and thank you very much for answering those very helpful questions and really sort of focus on living. All that I would like to add, my mum took out lasting power of attorney 20 years ago, and 10 years ago she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. She's been living with Alzheimer's for the last 10 years, living very actively, and that power of attorney has enabled us to carry on with those conversations. And although Mum no longer uses speech, we're living in our home together and we're sharing our home together. But although she no longer uses speech, she's still got an awful lot to say. And that lasting power of attorney has really enabled us to carry on with her wishes, with her living. She continues to laugh. She continues to smile. She's got so much to contribute, and she's changed our life for the better. 10 years ago, she was told, or we were told, she was in the final stages of Alzheimer's. What the bloody hell final stages is a nonsense, but we hear that often. She is absolutely in the first stage today, and every day with us for the last 10 years has been incredible. I'm not being Pollyanna-ish, it's just changed our life, and it's changed it for the better because we know what we're focusing on, and we're focusing on that with Mum.
I want to come back on that.
Can I respond to that just very quickly?
Yeah.
Thank you for those comments. You're absolutely right. Lasting power of attorney, crucial. And the point you make about time and giving labels of time to people with dementia, when I was diagnosed 10 years ago, I was given 3 to 6 years.
else like to contribute?
Wendy.
Wendy, did you want to add something to that?
I'd just like to say that lasting power of attorney isn't just for people with dementia. It's
No.
for everybody.
Everyone, absolutely.
Power of attorney is something that exists, and it's something that's practical and is there, so we can raise awareness, make it easier for people to make sure they have that. Are there other things? How much do people feel this is something that is about stigma and about attitude and about changing people's minds, and how much of it is actually about needing something new or inventing something new? Liz.
From listening to the discussion today, I don't think we will get much new without changing attitudes. I think there is a feeling out in society that dementia is the end. It makes people difficult to deal with, and that's uncomfortable, and it's not. It disrupts social norms. I just wish that this could be seen by far more people, today's discussion, and that's the kind of communication that will overturn the attitudes, that will get the support that people need.
Wendy, did you want to come back on that quickly?
Yeah, simply to say that, as I said, in my village, I was known as the camera lady first, and then someone with dementia. And people, I'm not kidding, lots of people have come up to me and said that they look at dementia differently, having known me as the camera lady first. They didn't have that immediate perception of what I should look like.
Anybody else like to come in? So I'm just going to check on the other screen.
Sharon Kerr.
Hi.
I've got a few hands up now. So yeah, Sharon Kerr.
Just very quickly, I just wanted to say that it's so important to realise that everyone's an individual, and it affects everyone is different with it. There's no one size fits all, and I just think we always have to remember that when we're trying to support people. That's it.
Laura, did you have your hand up as well?
Yeah, very quickly. Hey everyone. So I'm actually part of the Social Care Future Inquiry, and I am primary carer to my father. You might have seen me commenting away or ranting in the chat, depending on which way you look at it. The one thing I just want to pick up on is what Keith said, especially in terms of the stigma attached to, like, it's a death sentence, also what Chris said, like, and I think what we've all learned, particularly in COVID, is that the impact of isolation and lack of stimulation, and how that's actually brought on increasing symptoms for many, many people with dementia, from the people I've spoken to. And the stigma that's attaching to it also means that most people, my father included, following diagnosis, could not get another job. And he probably could have kept working for at least another year. And if he had been working, probably would have kept more stimulated and probably would not be in the place that he's in now. And I just think it's a really important point to get people to understand, just because you have that diagnosis doesn't mean that you can't do anything. But actually, in fact, if you don't do anything, it very likely will progress even faster. And obviously, panel, you guys are the experts, not me. This is just from my experience, but it feels like it's a common theme that I'm hearing quite a lot. And I think it's really, really important.
Julie, did you have your hand up a moment ago?
Me.
Julie Stansfield.
Wendy had her hand up.
Oh, Wendy, sorry, I have to go back to the screen. Sorry.
That's all right. I've spoken lots. Somebody else.
Yeah, I was just thinking, there's so much work done around sort of focusing on person-centered planning and getting people a purpose in life for the world of people who are disabled, but very, very little. And at the last group I were on about power issues, there was very much about sort of separating groups of people instead of saying, actually, as a society, we all want the same thing. We're all bought into the same vision, and the labels should just stay on jam jars. So I'm just, thinking one of the things that we should be doing it's sort of making sure that that spreads wider and make sure everybody's involved in that.
Neil, did you want to come in there? I saw your card up a minute ago. Sorry, Neil, you're still on mute.
Just a quick reflection, because we'll run out of time. I think, you know, my father died about 8 weeks ago, and he only actually had any formal care and support very much towards the end of his life. But I think, and he was perhaps, I don't want to use this phrase because we've just contested it, but his dementia was having a greater effect on him than perhaps some of the people we're talking about today by this stage. And one of the real challenges of organising home care was the way it's so targeted into time slots. And my dad was just not really paying any attention to time slots. So the idea he would want to get dressed and do something at 9 in the morning didn't really work. And you can see how that issue of time could nudge people into residential care homes where those time factors don't matter in the same way. So I think one of the things that we Social Care Future wants to challenge time and task commissioning of home care. But I think we have to think really imaginatively about different models of home-based and community-based support for people that get past those pressures of time and those time slots if it's to work.
Is there anybody else like to add a comment on that?
Time management for people with dementia is a real problem, and you know, people talk about memory being an issue, but there are so many different factors of dementia, and one's inability to manage time is certainly something I've encountered. Yeah.
Chris is wanting to say something.
Sorry, Chris, and I'll come to you, Wendy.
I was just going to say, if you meet one person with dementia, you've only met one person with dementia. The three of us here could have the same type of dementia, but have very, very different needs. And I was forced to give up my job when I was diagnosed. I was threatened with dismissal, and then I was made to have ill health retirement. In hindsight now, that shouldn't have happened. But yeah, we're all very different. Wendy?
We're coming to a close of the session now, so I think, Wendy, it's probably going to be the final words over to you.
I was going to say there's nothing I find more comforting than sitting doing nothing with dementia. But that's dementia's cruel way of lulling you in this false sense of security that it's good to do nothing. And in fact, I'm just so grateful that I'm intuitive enough to know that not doing is bad for me. And to keep doing anything I want while I still can.
Just for the last minute, just do a quick advert for a session coming up this afternoon. Chris, is it 2 o'clock?
Yes.
The Social Care Futures Inquiry. Chris and Lara have been on this session or are on that inquiry. So if you want to hear about some practical steps we can do to try and get a different conversation and different focus on dementia and social care more widely, then do join that one as well. But thank you to everybody, Philly, for putting this together with me, and the panel have been absolutely fantastic. So thank you very much, and see you all again next year, hopefully.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.